upon a time, in a big town in Nigeria, there lived a beautiful young girl named Ngozi. She lived with her father Amadi, her mother Ego, and her two siblings Amaka and Achebe. The family was poor and lived off their father's earnings as a carpenter, while they farmed on the only plot of land they owned. They planted cassava, maize, pepper, and seasonal vegetables on the land, as well as some fruits in the back of their house. With this plan, the family managed their money well, and the children were able to attend school. To support her husband, Ego began weaving large baskets for market women who sold tomatoes in bulk. The family was peaceful and content. Ngozi soon finished secondary school with flying colors, leaving her two siblings still in school. Since the family was poor and couldn't afford tertiary education fees for her, she decided to learn a skill. Her mother suggested various traditionally female skills, but Ngozi had no interest in them. She had always wanted to work in engineering, so she chose to become a mechanic. Her father was uncomfortable with this choice, believing that mechanics was a job meant for men. He tried to convince her otherwise, but she remained steadfast in her decision. Amadi took her to his friend's workshop, where she was registered to train as a car mechanic. Ngozi excelled, and after a few months, she was able to repair some cars on her own. Her boss, impressed by her enthusiasm and dedication, started giving her tips to encourage her to learn more. With this extra income, the family was able to make a few changes in their home, like adding meat to their soups and eating rice more frequently than before. One sunny day, Ngozi was returning from a home service job when she saw a car run over a man. A crowd had gathered, but no one seemed willing to take him to the hospital. She quickly stopped a cab and took him to the hospital. Upon arrival, the hospital demanded a deposit before admitting him, so she promptly paid the deposit. The doctor checked his vitals and found that he was stable, though still unconscious, likely due to shock of the accident. Ngozi waited for a while before leaving, planning to return the next day since the man hadn't woken up. She left her phone number with the hospital in case of an emergency. She returned home and informed her boss about the incident. During dinner, she told her parents what had happened. The next morning, Ngozi left the house earlier than usual and bought a plate of pepper soup on her way to the hospital. When she arrived, she found out the man was awake. She greeted him and introduced herself. The man thanked her for her timely intervention and introduced himself as Afam. She gave him the plate of food she had bought, which he ate as he took his medication. Afam thanked her profusely for her help. Then she asked, "Why did you cross the road without looking?" She had seen how carelessly he acted the previous day. "I'm sorry for my carelessness," he began. "I was depressed. Nothing seemed to be working for me. My mother is sick, and I can barely feed myself or pay my tuition fees. I'm just tired of this life. It's so difficult," he said. "Oh, Afam, don't say that," Ngozi replied. "Yes, life is hard, but you must believe and work hard so that one day things will get better," she said with a smile. They talked for a while, and the next day Ngozi returned to the hospital to discharge him since the doctor had certified him ready to leave. From then on, Afam and Ngozi became good friends and soon started dating. Afam would call her for help with his school fees, sometimes for his food and rent, and other times for handouts and books. "I promise you, Ngozi, When I graduate and get a good job, I will pay you back 100-fold and then we will get married, Afam would say, making Ngozi smile. She loved him so much that she would do anything he asked. Because of her support for Afam, Ngozi no longer supported her family as she used to. Her mother was not pleased and decided to have a conversation with her. Ngozi, my child, I am glad that you have found a path for yourself. You have always been a good girl, and for that I applaud you. But I must say that I am not pleased with your recent behavior. It's barely a month since you met this young man, and now you have forgotten your family. We no longer receive support from you like before. It's as if you no longer recognize us as your family, her mother said. Mother, I have heard you, but as you know, Afam is my boyfriend, and I need to support him now that he needs me. He had promised me that when he graduates, we will get married and live in a big house, Ngozi replied proudly. Is that so? Honestly, Ngozi, I am happy for you. But if you must live in this house and work, you must also contribute. You see how hard your father and I work just to put food on the table. Now that things are finally getting better, you choose to help someone else rather than help us, your family, Ego said angrily. Please stop, Mama. I'm an adult and I will do what I want with my money. Right now, I choose to help my boyfriend. What's wrong with that? Ngozi shouted at her mother. I will support Afam and nothing will stop me, not even you, she said, storming out. Come back here, Ngozi, her mother shouted, but Ngozi didn't even look back. Afam called her the same morning and Ngozi's voice sounded angry. What's wrong, my love? Why do you sound this way? You seem upset, he asked. Yes, my love. My mother kept nagging about how I no longer support the house like I used to, she replied. Oh, Ngozi, I'm sorry. I know I'm the cause of this, but don't worry. I will do everything in my power to make things right when I graduate and find a job, he said. Afam, there's something I've been meaning to ask you. Why don't you get a job that you can do in your free time, so you don't have to always depend on me for your expenses, she suggested. What are you saying, Ngozi? You know that I can't work. I won't be able to concentrate on my studies. It will drain me mentally and physically. If you are tired of supporting me, just say it, he said, getting angry. It's not that, my love. It's just that I want to be able to support my family too. And I have seen numerous undergraduates work during their free time, she explained. Numerous undergraduates, she said. Those numerous undergraduates are not Afam. I am different from them, so please stop comparing me with them, he snapped. Please don't get angry with me. I love you and I will always support you, she said. By the way, I called you because I needed some money. My mom was admitted last night and she needed urgent medical care, but we don't have the money. Please, I need 3 million naira for her treatment, he said. What? Where do you expect me to get that kind of money from, Afam? In case you don't know, I'm not a thief, she said. Oh, baby, I know. It's just that there's nobody else I can ask for that kind of money, he pleaded. But if you can't help me, I guess I will just let my mother to die in the hospital, he said. Don't worry, I will find the money and get back to you. What hospital is your mom admitted so I can go and visit her? She asked. Don't worry, my mom has dementia and doesn't recognize anyone. If she sees you, it might trigger her, so don't bother, just find the money, he said, ending the call. Ngozi thought for a while and then remembered her father's land. She hurried home to look for the papers. When she found them, she took them to a real estate agent who offered to buy the land for 2 million naira. She insisted on 3 million, but he refused and was about to leave when she reluctantly agreed to sell the land. After selling the land, she had another idea. She went to her boss's safe and found 1 million naira. She hurriedly went to the bank and transferred it to him. When Afam got the money, he thanked her profusely for saving his mother's life. Although she was happy to help the man she loved, she couldn't shake a lingering feeling of fear. The next morning, she returned to work and tried to call Afam, but he wasn't answering his calls. She concluded that he was busy and would call her back when he had the time. Her boss had traveled and would be back in a few days. She didn't know what excuse to give him for the missing money. She considered lying that the shop was robbed, but decided against it. If the shop had been robbed, the other shop would have been robbed too. She felt conflicted and increasingly worried since Afam wasn't returning her calls. That evening, she returned home to find her father fuming. "Ngozi, what have you done?" he asked. The look on his face told her that he had discovered the land was sold. She decided not to lie and told him the truth. "I'm sorry, Papa. My boyfriend's mother was sick and I sold the land to pay for her hospital bills." "What?" he asked as he started coughing. Ngozi, what have you done?" "Chim, Ngozi, you have killed us." As her father lamented, Ngozi knelt down to beg, saying that Afam will buy them new lands when he graduates from school. As she said that, her father's cough worsened and he was carried into the hut. That night, Ngozi slept outside with nowhere to go. Early the next morning, Ngozi's boss was outside their house. She stood up immediately when she saw him. "Sir, what are you doing here this early? I wasn't expecting you to be back so soon," she asked. "Yes, Ngozi, I was able to finish my work earlier than expected. I needed some money, so I checked the safe at the shop, but I didn't see the money I had left there, and I couldn't reach you. I thought you had deposited it in my account, but I didn't get any alert. That's why I'm here," he said. Sir, the thing is I used the money," she stammered, scratching her head. "That's a joke, right?" he asked. "No, sir, it's not, but I promise to refund it soon." "Oh my God, Ngozi, what did you use the money for?" he asked in a loud voice, waking Ngozi's mother, who answered for her. "Afam." "She gave the money to Afam," she said. "Who is Afam?" "Well, never mind, I don't care. All I know is that I need my money before the end of today, or I will do something you won't like," he said as he left the compound. "Hey God, what have I done to deserve this? Ngozi, whatever happens, you will carry this burden alone," her mother said as she returned into the house. Ngozi was beyond devastated. She quickly left the house to search for Afam. She remembered that he had told her the name of his school in one of their conversations. When she got there, she asked some students about Afam. Some didn't know him, as there were a few people in the school with Afam as their first or last name. As she continued, she met a particular girl who asked her to describe the Afam she was looking for. Ngozi tried to describe him as best as she could, and the girl told her she knew Afam and would take her to him. She then asked Ngozi who she was to him and why she was looking for him. Ngozi thought there was no need, so she said some things to her. You mean Afam did all that?" she said. "That's so bad. But first, Let's see if it's the Afam I know. They hadn't walked far enough when they saw Afam, his hands around the waist of a very beautiful girl. They were dressed in expensive clothes and looked very much in love. If she didn't love him, she would have said they looked perfect together. Ngozi stopped and pointed. "That's him," she said to the girl. She looked at Afam and then at Ngozi. "You mean Afam is your boyfriend?" she asked, surprised. "I should confront him," Ngozi said, while the girl stood and watched. Afam turned and looked at her, his smile fading. "Who are you, and what can I do for you?" he asked. "Afam, why are you talking to me this way?" "It's me, your love," Ngozi said. "What is she talking about?" the girl with Afam asked, frowning. "Baby, it's nothing to worry about," he said, smiling at the girl. "Afam, why haven't you been answering my calls?" Ngozi asked. "Do I know you?" he repeated. "Afam, how can you say you don't know me?" "It's me, Ngozi, your girlfriend," she replied. "Ha ha ha, my girlfriend indeed." Afam laughed mockingly. "Babe, is it true?" the girl asked. "How can it be true?" he replied. "Just look at her. How can this dirty village girl be my girlfriend?" "It's you I love, Sabrina. It's you I desire," he said, confessing his love to his girlfriend. As Ngozi watched, tears fell down her face. "Wow, Afam, you have played me well. Do you even have a mother who was sick?" "Well, it's okay. Just hand over the money I sent to you," she demanded. "You foolish girl. I don't know you. I think you have hit your head on a rock or something. Please leave and never show your face to me again." Ngozi tried to cause a scene, but people gathered and told her to leave, calling her all sorts of names. Ngozi fell to the ground, crying her eyes out. I'm finished. What do I do? Where do I go from here?" she asked, rolling on the ground. People passed and stared at her. The girl from earlier, whose name was Patricia, came and carried Ngozi away. She took her to her house, gave her some water to bath, and then some food. When she finished, Ngozi dozed off to sleep. She was mentally exhausted from the events of the past 2 days. When she woke up, her present predicament dawned on her. She began to cry once more. That was when the girl, Patricia, heard her cry and returned to the room. She hugged her and rubbed her back to calm her down. Taking a deep breath, Patricia began. "What has happened. But I must ask, you didn't tell me how much you sent him. Maybe I can help you with it." "I'm positive you can't help me. It's huge, very huge," Ngozi said, crying again. "Just tell me," Patricia insisted. 3 million, Ngozi replied. "Eh? Where did you get that kind of money from?" "From what I can tell, you can't return home without it," Patricia said. "What got into you, Ngozi?" she asked with pity. "Love," Ngozi said. "I was blinded by love. I loved him so much that I was willing to do anything for him," she cried. "My dear, that is beyond me. I have never seen that kind of money at once, let alone giving it to someone I barely know," Patricia said. "I'm finished," Ngozi cried again. She could not return home, and she could not go back to the shop. She was sure her boss would get her arrested. Later that evening, Ngozi's boss returned to her father's house with some policemen to arrest her. They left when they couldn't find her. Patricia told Ngozi to find a place to sleep because her roommate was returning that evening. She directed Ngozi to a shelter where she could stay for the time being. It was packed with people, but she still got a space for herself. Throughout the night, her mind was filled with different scenarios. Afam, her family, and her boss. It wasn't until early hours of the morning that she finally fell asleep, only to be woken a few hours later by the noise in the shelter. The sound of children and mothers were everywhere. She saw she had a message from Afam. She quickly opened it with happiness in her eyes, but was disappointed to see the content of the message. It read, "I saw the stunt you pulled yesterday. Don't ever try it again. If you do, I will make sure I deal with you in a way you will never forget. Stupid girl." Unknowingly, tears started falling from her face. She hid her face in her palm as she cried her eyes out. She went back to Patricia's place, but was told she had gone for lectures. She waited for her to return. After a few hours, Patricia finally arrived. They greeted each other and Patricia gave her some food. When Ngozi finished eating, Patricia asked if she had visited her parents. Ngozi looked at her oddly. "I can't go back. My parents have disowned me. I have nowhere to go and no one to turn to except you," she said sadly. "But I must advise that you visit them once again to see their reaction," Patricia suggested. Ngozi was quiet, unsure if she could do it. "I know how you feel. Go back to them and ask for their forgiveness. If they refuse, you can come back to me and we will think of something to do," Patricia encouraged. Ngozi went back to the shelter to think more on the matter. When she gathered enough courage, she walked to her father's compound. As she got closer, she couldn't help but notice that their house looked strange. She walked into the compound and saw no one. Normally, her mother would be in the house at that time of day. She knocked on the door several times, but no one answered. She went to the neighboring compound and asked about her family. There she found out that her boss had returned as he said he would. When he didn't find her, he brought someone to buy the land that their house was on, took his money and gave whatever was left to her father. Since the money wasn't enough for them to continue staying in the city, they decided to return to the village. At that point, Ngozi felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She walked mindlessly back to the shelter. "Afam, it will never be better with you," she cursed as she cried. Her good deeds had been turned into evil by the one person she loved and trusted. She knew she would never have the courage to face her mother or father ever again. She had caused them so much pain and heartbreak. A week later, she went back to Patricia and explained what she had learned from their neighbors. "I am so sorry. It's such a pity you fell into the hands of an evil man. I will get back to you if I figure something out, but for now you must leave. I have somewhere to be," Patricia said as she gave her some money and then left. As Ngozi walked back, she thought, "I have just met Patricia a couple of days ago, but she has been so helpful. The one I met months ago did something unbelievable to me. I had just learned my first lesson. You cannot truly know a person by how long you have known them, but how well they treat you." She walked to the shelter and saw that dinner was being served. She joined the queue to be served. The food wasn't very good, but it was better than staying hungry. She and Patricia talked on the phone a few times, and one day Patricia called and said that she wanted to see her. When Ngozi went over, Patricia told her that she had a job for her, but it was in a different state. Ngozi liked the idea. She had nothing else keeping her there. Staying there just reminded her of her stupidity and carelessness. The job was in Lagos, and it pays well, You can earn around 100,000 to 150,000 naira a month. It's a nursing home where you will care for old and less privileged people. It's privately owned, so people who can't care for their elderly parents bring them there and pay for their upkeep, Patricia explained. I'll take it, Ngozi said. Okay, I like that. But how will you get the money for transportation? Patricia asked. Ngozi thought for a while and decided to sell her phone. After she sold the phone, she realized it was almost exactly the amount she needed for her transportation. Patricia also gave her extra 5,000 naira and also the location to the place. She copied Patricia's phone number on a piece of paper. Call me whenever you can, Patricia said as they hugged. Ngozi took the night bus, leaving all her bad memories behind. It was a long journey, but she finally arrived in Lagos. She asked some people around and soon got a bus that took her to the exact location. She walked into the building and explained herself to one of the nurses she met. She then took her to her boss, Miss Rachel. Miss Rachel was a lady of about 40 years old, with a friendly face and smile. She told Ngozi to sit, gave her a form to fill, and then showed her to her room where she would stay after her shift. Ngozi slept that day and prayed for a better beginning in Lagos. The next morning, she was briefed about the job, what to do and what not to do. She started with an old woman who was grumpy the whole time. The woman didn't like the nursing home and wanted to return to stay with her children. Ngozi did everything she could to make her comfortable. She attended to two other women who weren't as grumpy as the first one. After her long shift, she finally rested. As the days went by, she began to enjoy the job. Not a day passed without her missing her family, and the feeling of guilt weighed heavily on her. She felt immense pride when she received her first salary. She bought a phone and called Patricia to tell her about her new job. They talked for a while and then ended the call. Ngozi was living a peaceful life, and after 2 months of working, she felt the need to do something nice to ease her guilt. She asked Patricia to visit her parents on her behalf. She sent her some money to buy some provisions and take them to her parents, claiming it was part of a government scheme to help the elderly. She also gave Patricia the address of her village and community. Patricia did as she was told and later reported her parents' reaction to the gift. The condition of your family is very bad. Your father is sick and your two siblings are not attending school because they couldn't afford the exam fees. I think you should think about visiting them again, she said. Don't worry, Patricia. I will do so in my own time. But I must say thank you for all you do for me. God bless you so much. You are one hell of a friend, Ngozi replied, and they laughed together. Another lesson Ngozi learned was a good friend who will do anything for you without expecting something in return. One day, after finishing her work, Ngozi decided to take a stroll around the estate. She noticed a young man getting out of his luxurious car. He was alone, and it was clear he was wealthy. He was dressed in black trousers and a neatly ironed white shirt. His hair styled perfectly to complement his face. He was none other than Dimitri Azubike. As he walked, he stared at Ngozi longer than he should have. Ngozi noticed his gaze and didn't like it, so she quickened her steps to avoid his piercing eyes. Dimitri had come to see his sister Rachel. They talked for a while and then he asked about the girl he had seen, describing her to his sister. Oh, Ngozi, she works here. She joined us a few months ago. She's such a sweet girl. Where did you meet her? Rachel asked. Oh, never mind. I was just curious, Dimitri replied. He stayed for a bit longer and then he left, his eyes wandering in hopes of catching a glimpse of her again. A few days later, he returned to the facility just because of her, which Rachel found strange. She asked him what he was up to, but he insisted he was just there to visit. She knew he was lying. Just say it already. What are you doing here? She asked. The girl. The one I described to you the other day, he replied. Ngozi? Why are you looking for her? Rachel asked. I like her, Dimitri said. What? Please leave her alone. She doesn't need a playboy like you. Dimitri, she deserves better, Rachel said. No, I really like her, insisted. Well, I don't believe you, but I think she has the right to know that you like her. Her shift ends at 6. You can see her then, Rachel replied. He was glad that his sister was supportive of him. Ngozi's face had been on his mind since the day he saw her. Normally, girls would chase after him, but she had walked away as if he were a dragon. After her shift, Ngozi was called into Rachel's office. She saw the man from the other day. She looked at him, then quickly averted her eyes. Ma, you asked to see me, she said. Yes, Ngozi. I know you are tired, but I need you to meet someone. This is Dimitri. He asked about you. He just wants to talk, and I think you should listen to him and hear what he has to say, Rachel explained. Ngozi looked at him strangely. He stood up and gestured for her to follow him. They walked until they reached his car. Hello, Ngozi. I'm Dimitri. It's nice to meet you, he said. Likewise, sir, she replied. He was expecting her to call him by his name, not sir, but he continued. I like you, Ngozi, and I want us to be friends, he said, smiling. I'm sorry, sir, but I do not want to be your friend, she said. If that's all, I would like to return to my room, she added. That's blunt. I thought at least you would tell me that you wanted to think about it or accept my proposal immediately. I wasn't expecting you to reject me, he said, not pleased. I'm really sorry, sir, but I'm not interested in any relationship at the moment. And I might never be, she said, muttering the last part to herself. Though he heard her. Okay, if you say so, you can go now. Thank you for your time, he said. But she didn't reply. What's her problem? He asked angrily as he got into his car and drove off. He spent the next few days thinking of how he could approach her again and make her accept him. After much deliberation, he finally came up with the perfect idea. He visited his father and told him about his plan. Father, I have something important to discuss with you. It's about a girl I met recently, he began. Okay, his father said, urging him to continue. I really like her, but she doesn't seem to be interested in me. That's why I want your help, Dimitri said. So how can I help you? His father asked. I want you to pretend to be sick so she can come and take care of you. While she's doing that, I will get close to her, Dimitri explained. What? Are you wishing me sickness? His father asked, surprised. No, father. It's just for a short period of time, Dimitri reassured him. This girl you are talking about, how serious are you about her? His father asked again. I'm not sure, but I know I think about her all the time, and I really want to get to know her better, Dimitri said. His father wanted to see Dimitri settle down. He was tired of seeing his son with numerous girls, and the headlines always made sure to report on his escapades. He prayed this would be Dimitri's last stop. I'll help you, but you must be careful. I do not want to be involved in your playboy lifestyle, his father said. Thank you, father. I will make the necessary arrangement, Demetri said. Not long after, he called his sister. Rachel, I need you to send someone to help take care of Dad. He's been complaining to me about needing someone to stay with him and support him, he said. Okay, I can come stay with him for a few days. I think my husband will understand, Rachel offered. No, not you. Send someone from the facility, Demetri said. Okay, I will talk to someone and have her come over, she agreed. Send Ngozi. She's good with elderly people, Demetri suggested. Demetri, what are you up to? I hope you are telling me the truth, she said, ending the call. Rachel didn't trust her brother. She knew how fixated he was on Ngozi, and she knew his nature. He wouldn't stop until he got what he wanted. She called her father, who assured her that what Demetri said was true. She then called Ngozi and told her about the arrangement. Ngozi was reluctant to go. She enjoyed her job at the facility. Rachel saw her reluctance. It's okay, Ngozi. Nothing is going to happen to you. You will have less work and more pay, she said. As soon as Ngozi had more pay, she agreed to go. She could use the extra money to help her parents. She quickly packed her bags and the car came to pick her up. When she arrived, she was amazed at how big the house was. She had never been in a house like that. She suddenly felt excited. But that excitement faded as soon as she set eyes on Demetri. She felt uncomfortable under his gaze. She greeted him as he took her to her room and later introduced her to his father. They got acquainted and she was given a few instructions to follow. His meal times, his meditation and evening walk schedule, and his medical appointment. Throughout their time together, Demetri couldn't take his eyes off her. When she looked up and met his gaze, her heart skipped a beat. This man was breaking down her walls. She had promised herself never to fear or love any man again, but she wasn't sure if that was possible with Demetri around. She made dinner, served Demetri's father, and then went to her room to eat. She was determined to do anything to stay away from him. This went on for a few days and Demetri noticed. It frustrated him. She was in the house because of him, yet she was avoiding him. He talked to his father, who told him to calm down and assured him that she would warm up to him slowly. Ngozi called Patricia to ask her about her parents and also send money for their upkeep. Patricia told her that her siblings had returned to school and her father was getting better, but he still looked sad. Ngozi was partly happy and partly sad. She thanked Patricia and ended the call. She noticed that she hadn't seen Demetri in the house lately, and somehow she missed him, but she would never admit it. One night, she was watching a movie when she heard the door click. She thought it was a burglar, but was surprised to see Demetri. Hi, she said, standing up to switch off the TV. You don't have to do that, he said. Yeah, but it's late. I need to go to sleep, she said, looking down. You know it's not true. It's because of me, he said with a subtle smile. Why are you avoiding me, Ngozi? What have I done wrong? So I can apologize. It's not you, Demetri. It's me, she said. What's wrong with you, he asked. I do not want to talk about it, she said. Good night, Demetri, she added with a smile. Demetri couldn't understand her, but it was a start. At least she talked to him, even if it was just a few words. Dimitri had been busy with work and rarely visited his father's house. Dimitri's father and Ngozi got along well, and she began to see him as a father figure, which made her miss her own father even more. One day, he asked her about her parents, and her mood turned sad. She told him that she had done something wrong and that her parents had cut her off. He encouraged her to go and ask for their forgiveness, saying that sometimes parents say things they don't mean. She nodded, knowing that her parents meant every word they had said to her. One evening, Patricia called her. Ngozi, your mother called me this morning, saying that your father is really sick. And it sounds serious this time, Patricia said. Ngozi immediately ended the call as a sob escaped her mouth. She cried, knowing how hard it was for her father not to be able to provide for his family. She couldn't stop crying. Just then, her door opened, and she saw Dimitri. Her tear-stained face made him feel uncomfortable. What's wrong, Ngozi? He asked. A loud cry escaped her mouth as he went to hold her. She held onto him as she cried. I'm a bad daughter, she said through her tears. Why would you say that? He asked. My parents. I did something bad, she said. Okay, we will talk about this when I get back, he said. He got her some water and waited for her to calm down. Then she told him everything, not leaving a single detail. I understand, Ngozi, but now it's time to make amends. Do you want to see them? He asked. She looked at him like a deer caught in headlights. Yes, she said. He was tempted to kiss her, but resisted the urge. Okay, we will visit them first thing tomorrow morning. Don't worry about my father. He will understand. Now go to sleep. Tomorrow will be a long day, he said, kissing her forehead before leaving the room. Ngozi blushed as she lay down to sleep. Early the next morning, they prepared and left for the airport. Ngozi was surprised. She had never been to an airport before. She told Dimitri that she didn't have money for flight tickets, and he just laughed and held her hand. They soon reached Enugu State, and a cab took them to her village. She reached the village and saw her sister first. She ran and hugged her, tears falling from her eyes. Where is Papa? She asked. He's inside with Mama, her sister replied. As she entered the house, her mother saw her and was shocked. They both cried as they hugged. Who is this man with you? Her mother asked. Sorry, Mama. His name is Dimitri Azubike. I work for his family. Good afternoon, Mama, Dimitri greeted. Good afternoon, my son. How are you? She asked. I'm good, Mama. How is Papa doing? He asked. He's not doing well, she responded, looking at her husband. It's better we take him to the hospital so he can receive treatment. Dimitri called the driver, and they carried Amadi into the car and headed for the hospital. Amadi started receiving treatment and responded positively. Ngozi talked to her mother and apologized for all she had done in the past. We have all forgiven you, Ngozi. We never knew where you were or how to contact you. Your father kept asking about you. He said he just wanted to see you before he died, her mother said. Papa is not dying, Ngozi replied, feeling a huge weight lifted off her chest. Dimitri paid for all the medical expenses. He was tired and needed to rest, but he wanted Ngozi to go with him. However, she wanted to stay beside her father. Dimitri stayed in a hotel close to the hospital. The next day, Amadu woke up to find his daughter beside him. He held her hand, a smile on his face. Ngozi apologized to her father, and he told her that he had already forgiven her and hoped she had learned her lesson. Not long after, Dimitri arrived. Ngozi introduced him to her father, and Amadi thanked him. Later, Ngozi left with Dimitri. "Thank you so much, Dimitri. What do you want from me?" "Anything and I will do for you," she asked. "Marry me," he said. She laughed. Right there he handed her a ring, and she accepted his proposal. Dimitri had bought the ring. Immediately he knew his heart accepted Ngozi. She shared the news with her family, and they were delighted. Not long after, Amadi was discharged from the hospital. Dimitri opened a furniture shop for him and a grocery shop for her mother. He enrolled her two siblings in a good school. It took some time to plan the wedding, and on the day of the ceremony, everyone gathered to witness their union. "If anyone is against this union, raise your hand or forever hold your peace," the officiant said. Someone raised his hand from the back, and behold, it was Afam. "Afam," Ngozi whispered. "I still love you, Ngozi. Don't marry this man. He doesn't love you. Please forgive me and come back to me. I love you so much. I still want to have a future with you, Ngozi. Please." Ngozi slapped him hard across the face. "Get out and never show your face to me again," she said. Some men from the back ushered him out, and the wedding continued. Dimitri and Ngozi lived a wonderful life, eventually giving birth to two beautiful children. This story emphasizes on trust, friendship, and family. We must avoid trusting people blindly, because you may never know their true intentions. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Please don't forget to like, comment, and share. See you in the next one. Bye.